Let's go through bioactive enclosures for leopard geckos. Stay tuned. So the whole point of bioactivity is to replicate the natural habitat that these animals come from while still keeping it safe for pets. Let's talk about that. If you're thinking about going bioactive for your leopard gecko, the best thing you want to do, the first thing you want to do is do the research on their natural habitat. Their natural habitat comes from Afghanistan, Pakistan, those sorts of arid areas. So you need to replicate their heat, their temperature, the lighting, absolutely everything perfectly if you want a perfectly happy, healthy leopard gecko in captivity. So then guys, this is my leopard gecko bioactive enclosure. I'm going to run you through the heating, the setup, the substrate, the cleanup crew, absolutely everything you need to know to make an arid bioactive enclosure just for you. So this is just a nighttime view of this enclosure. We've got 3 hides on the hot side, a hide over the back there in the middle, and one over the other side there, which is the cold hide / humid hide. They also hide underneath that skull as well. There you go, 3 hides on the hot side. Both the leopard geckos there. We do have 2 in here. We are cohabitating without problem because we do add the extra hides. Fully bioactive substrate with cleanup crew, with live plants and fake plants, and they absolutely thrive in here. They love it. We do need to add a background into this enclosure, simply to make it look a bit better, give them a few ledges to climb on, but that is the last thing we do need to do to this enclosure. It's a 3-foot wooden vivarium. The substrate is around about 3 inches deep so that we do have enough potting area for the various plants. They are often found cuddled up together inside the same hide, but this is the hot side anyway. This is heated with a heat mat underneath the substrate with a thermostat probe on top of the substrate, so it does have the correct belly heat temperature. There are other ways you can heat it. You can heat it with a bulb, a CHE. Whichever way you do decide to heat your enclosure, make sure it is thermostated. It is vitally important. We have our hotspot at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And as you can tell, they're still mobile, they still move around the enclosure. They use the whole entire enclosure for their own benefit, just to mooch around. They do enjoy climbing over the succulent plants that we do have live planted in this enclosure. As you can tell, there they both are. We've got Millie, the normal leopard gecko, she's in the hide, and Donna, the blazing blizzard. Their tail does look a bit slim. It is mid-breeding season for them. They have come off food, but they will be coming back on. Let's talk substrate. So the substrate I went for was Arcadia's Arid Earth Mix, and I've mixed that with a bit of topsoil over closer to the humid hide and a little bit of sand in there as well. The play sand that we added, that was for a reason. That was to aid in binding, so the substrate will all bind together and give them the opportunity to start making a few burrows, and the burrows won't collapse because they've got the bindings. We have a little bit of sphagnum moss over in the cold side as well in the moist hide, and that's just to help them aid with shedding, and also helps with the cleanup crew to get a little bit of a moist hide for them. While we're talking about cleanup crew, let's go over to it. You've just seen there's a morio worm underneath that water dish. That's coiled up, ready to pupate into a beetle. So we do use morio worm beetles, we use mealworm beetles, we use tropical grey woodlice and orange woodlice, because the orange do like it a little bit drier. And they get around, they clean up all the waste that is in there. Sometimes we add a springtail culture in there. Now, that doesn't really tend to do well in an arid environment. Here's the mealworm beetles that we do use. We've never had a problem with them doing anything to the leopard geckos. If anything, the leopard geckos eat these beetles, so they do tend to hide, but they do tend to clean up waste really productively. Helps fertilise the soil, the substrate, which in turn helps the plant growth. So we also use morio worm beetles. We just drop the morio worms straight in the setup, and they pupate and go themselves. We do tend to take a few of the beetles out because it can get overrun sometimes. Here's a quick look at the tropical grey woodlice that we use. We do enjoy using these. They tend to spend most of the time over the humid hide, which is quite lucky really, because that's where the leopard geckos go to the toilet. And here's another one that we've just started using, the dairy cow isopods. They like it a little bit drier than the tropical greys, so they're perfect for this scenario. The leopard geckos don't eat them, they culture up just nicely, and they're an absolutely perfect cleanup crew for leopard geckos, or any arid species for that matter. These are in with our bearded dragon as well. So some people might be asking, why are you using loose substrate for the leopard geckos when they're not supposed to be on a loose substrate? This substrate is compact. It is compact down somewhat tight. They have no risk of any impaction injuries, simply because I tongue feed my leopard geckos, as you can tell right now. This way they can't accidentally digest any of the loose substrate. The other benefits I find with tongue feeding is you can directly see exactly how much each one of them are eating, and you can tell exactly which ones may be off their food. You can keep a log of what they're eating, when they're shedding and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit of personal time for you and the geckos. I think the only time I ever just leave food in there is when I feed locusts. That's when I want them to start hunting their food, give them a bit of exercise if they've been a bit lethargic. They enjoy getting out and about, having a bit of fun chasing the locusts, but again, I'll still sit there and watch them to make sure they don't ingest any substrate and to make sure they get their fair share of food between them. So let's get on to the subject of lighting for your leopard geckos. They don't need any UVB lighting, they don't need any LED lighting. Me personally, I do use it. Now I use it for a couple of reasons. I have both LEDs and UVB lighting in this enclosure. I have a 7.0 UVB. Now I use that to replicate the day and nighttime routine. So they're on 12 hours on, 12 hours off. The UVB light is on for around about 20 minutes longer than the LED light. So the LED light goes out and it's a little bit dimmer, so it replicates a sunset. That's when the leopard geckos start coming out and they start basking under the UVB lighting. Just like they would in their native Afghanistan or Pakistan, they come out, absorb some vitamin D from the sun just as the sun's setting and it's not as intense. The UVB and the LED also help out with the cleanup crew and the plant growth. And on top of that, it also makes it extremely aesthetically pleasing, so you get to show it off to the gas man when he comes round to check out your boiler. So guys, thanks for once again tuning in. I hope you found it insightful. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and if you are really enjoying it, hit that little notification bell next to it. That way you'll get notified every time I do upload a video. Thanks for tuning in.